Should we erase this? Start fresh or just...
Yeah, let's start all over and do your thing.
Yeah. Let's see. Stop. And record. Here we go.
I liked how you started with the quote.
Yeah.
I like that.
Right on. Do not pray for an easy life. Pray for the strength to endure a difficult life. That's a quote by Bruce Lee. I forgot to mention that. Good morning. This is episode 46 of the Formless Podcast with Tyler, the Superhuman, and me, Dustin. Let's get to it.
Good morning.
Morning. So you were talking earlier, working on the movie, getting that finished up.
Yeah, we're working on sound effects right now on the movie, and the soundtrack and the score for the film.
Okay.
So we got all the post-production that we're working on. The editing of the film is completely done. We got a locked edit, and so now we're just adding sound effects. You know, the sounds of doors opening, of things hitting the ground. You know, a car engine, stuff like that. We're adding that in, and then we got guys doing the score, and then we got a guy doing color correcting. Like kind of playing with the colors on the image and kind of like changing them a little bit. It's called color correcting.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can make the colors. You know, in a horror film, you want a darker film, right? You want
yeah. Or like in the
look.
Matrix, when he's in the Matrix, it's kind of a green.
Yeah,
tint.
correct.
Yeah.
That's what you want, you know. And so that's the type of thing you're doing. They might have done that a little bit differently because that was a while back, but it's the general idea, messing with that. The colors, and then so we're doing all that and getting ready to get the film released, hopefully. So we'll keep you updated via the podcast.
Yeah. So is there like is there a tentative date planned or not yet?
So right now, the tentative plan is to release sometime in the spring of 2024.
Okay.
Now, whether or not we hit that mark, I don't know.
It's going to depend on a whole bunch of factors, I'm sure.
A whole bunch of factors. But that's our target release date, is spring 2024.
Yeah.
So pretty excited.
You know, that's awesome. But that brings up a really good point. That's a huge project. You know, a huge goal. I was reading something earlier about focusing on the little things for the big goal. Like, don't focus on the massive goal because it's daunting, right? Just chip away at it and do the small stuff, and all that small stuff adds up to the big thing. You know, that is so interesting because today, like while I was waiting, you know, I showed up a little earlier. I was waiting for you to get here. I found an old journal that I started. I've been journaling consecutively since 2020.
Wow.
Yeah, at least 5 days a week.
So for 3 years.
Yeah, and I miss some days here and there, but for the most part, Monday through Friday, I write in it. So anyway, I just happened to like, oh wow, you know, find it in my backpack, and it's going through, and so I found something that was really, really interesting. I wanted to kind of read it a little bit, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
Worked out last night when I got home. This was July 15th, 2020.
Wow. Okay.
Worked out last night. More last night when I got home, swim in the little pool that we got for the boys. This morning I hit the kettlebells, only for a little bit. My arms are still singing to me from swimming. There are so many things going on, and I feel like I have so much potential, but no way to see it. I need more work. I must reflect on this. I don't want to live a life in the background. I do like beating the sun up, hitting the bells even before I'm wide awake. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel as if I'm on the very cusp of something. What it is not exactly clear, but that is exciting. I must not fail here. I've been doing this for 6 days now, and I'm still trying to figure out all of this. I feel better, but it's not easy. Sleep came hard last night. My mind is not mine. when my thoughts wander, I have to control that. There are many distractions. I must not let them be that. Focus on the goal. I'm writing this sitting in a parking lot, shaking my head at myself. What's the goal? Not sure. I don't know, but I am improving myself. I will be better than yesterday. Maybe I'll turn this into a blog or a podcast or a book. No matter, I must get after it.
Wow.
So that was before we started the podcast. That was before any of this happened. We were just getting ready to, this was during COVID and everything. The hard choices are not easy, but I am trying. The hardest step is always the first one. I've chosen that first step. Now I just have to keep stepping. Think about this. Losses are real. Hardships are real. This COVID thing is real.
Oh,
not really. Telling my children that I may not have a job because of a pending shutdown is real. Shit gets hard. It makes me angry and I know it's not right. But I want to lash out. I'm glad for the workouts at home and at the dojo. For this is what keeps me sane when I'm angry and when I'm upset about the government, my job, my boss, my life. I literally was reading that this morning, and the last episode we had talked about books and like how we started and everything. I was like, I wonder if that was like the thing that made me start thinking about everything, like doing all that, but.
Like doing a
podcast, doing
books.
Yeah. So I don't know, it was just kind of serendipitous to find that and be like, oh, I got to share that with Tyler.
Yeah, and here we are, 46 episodes later.
Yeah, how cool, you know?
God, and 2023 just feels like, 2020 feels like yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like.
But so much stuff has happened.
Totally.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It's like, it feels like a really busy movie or song, like with tons of instrumentation and like it's just there's something going on everywhere, you know, like a big jazz band, like a 30-piece orchestra, and everything is there's like so much busy work. There's the drums are going and the horns are going, the strings are, like all of this just noise happening all at once. I don't know.
A lot of moving pieces.
A lot of moving pieces.
Yeah.
Lots of moving pieces.
Wow, that is serendipitous that you found that.
Yeah, I literally was just going through because I was like, what are we going to talk about today? Here are some ideas and things. And I'm like, I'll go through my books that I have because I always carry my backpack when we do this, and I've got the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, Zen and the Martial Arts, and a few other books, and I kind of go through them and look for quotes or like little stories in there, and like, oh, this is a good thing. This is a topic we could talk about or something. And then I forgot that I had my old journal in here. And I was like, oh, I pulled that out, and literally the first page I opened it to was that entry.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
How funny is that? And so it's like I just started reading it. I just opened it up and started reading. I was like, whoa, this like
fits in.
It fits in. Like I couldn't have planned that a little any better. I don't think so.
When I was listening to that, I was like, did he like go through and reread his journal?
No, I was just like looking at it. I just opened it up and read the first entry I opened it up to, and that was it. That was it.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
That's cool. That's really cool. And you still journal every day?
Yeah, I still journal 5 days a week. Sometimes I'll do it on the weekends, but most of the time, I do. My routine is to do it every morning before I start work.
That's a good morning routine.
Yeah. So generally, my mornings I get up at 4 a.m. now instead of 4:30, which is a half hour is so much harder. That half hour earlier, Like 4:30, I can get up, no problem. Like I have not an issue. For whatever reason, waking up at 4 is like it's tough sometimes. But my routine is to wake up in the morning, and generally I try and either swing the kettlebells or do a little stretch or some sort of physical thing very first thing in the morning. And then I get ready for work, and I go to my first stop, and then I sit there and like write my journal, and then I start my day.
Really?
Yeah.
So you're up at 4. What time do you normally start work?
Anywhere between 5 and 5:30, depending on where I'm going that day. Yeah. So it's the cool feeling, and I wrote about it somewhere else in another entry. The cool thing is like by getting up early and like getting started by 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, when most people are just getting started, I've got 3 or 4 hours in it.
You're hitting your stride.
Yeah. I'm like, I've already done so much stuff. Like I've got all of this going already. I got my exercise in. I've got, I've got 2 or 3 stops down, and and most people are like, hey, just waking up, just having that first cup of coffee,
Yeah.
So it's a cool feeling. I don't know. I'm weird that way. It's just it's unique.
Now, what do you do on the weekends? So do you sleep in till 5?
Depends. Like today I was up by like 6.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Or 5:30, something like that. I don't really keep track on the weekends. I just wake up when I wake up. But generally it's usually before the sun gets up. But it's like, that's my quiet time. That's my time to like, I don't have to be anywhere. I don't have to have anything done. So I just try and relax during that time. Because Monday through Friday is go.
Mm-hmm.
And so I try to let myself not have anything to do.
On the weekends?
On the week. Well, not like I have stuff to do, but like that morning, when I wake up that morning, I try not to have an agenda. I just try and like relax and reflect on what I've got to do, or not even that. Just like reflect on being, like just not have an agenda.
Yeah. Like take a breather.
Take a breather. Yeah. Like I kind of feel like all during the week you're swimming in the deep water, and now it's time to just kind of float. Go to the shallow side and just kind of relax for a minute, because it's gonna, Monday's coming around the corner, and now we're gonna go back right out into that deep water and deal with the sharks and the waves and the crap, So
wow.
At least that's the general plan. It doesn't always work that way.
It's so important to have those rest days. In those days, like the weekend, like Saturday and Sunday, to like recharge and have your quiet time.
Yeah.
Because if you're always working, then you never have that.
Yeah.
It's like we go to sleep every night, right, to recharge for the next day, and it's almost like then the Saturday, Sunday, the weekends are the sleep for the
for the rest of the week.
The rest of the week, the rest.
Well, and with a family and everything, and like my wife's going to school, and she's teaching. She teaches the kids homeschool, and then the kids are super busy. They got their activities, they got their homeschool stuff. So the week is pretty jam packed, and then so on the weekends, like I really just kind of want to have time to like do whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And if the kids need, if one of them's struggling with something or they need help with something, try and cut time out for that. But sometimes too, it's like, oh, well, I put off all of this other stuff for the week, and so now I got to use the weekend to catch up.
Yeah.
clean house or do chores or fix things. So it just depends, and I try not to have anything too planned out because then I just get frustrated because there's only 48 hours in that weekend. And
Yeah.
I can only cram so much stuff in those 48 hours.
Yeah, and it's Monday or Tuesday of the week, and then you've already got your weekends already planned out what you're doing, but sometimes those things you got to do, like you're saying, you got to fix those things.
Yeah.
You got to put in the time.
Otherwise,
who's gonna do it?
Yeah, exactly. And you're behind the 8 ball and everything else. Challenges. They're all challenges. Yeah, you can't you just have to keep making the progress. You can't focus with the movie, right? The goal, the goal is to make the movie, put it in a theater, finish it. But if you have to keep an eye on that, I'm sure, but you also have to manage the little details and keep chipping away at that. Mm-hmm. Because if you just focus on the finished product, you don't make any progress. Not real tangible progress, I would assume. I don't know. I've never made a movie.
Just like anything, if you're going to climb the mountain, you got to take those first couple steps, so then the next couple steps.
Yeah, you got to make sure you got your equipment.
Yeah,
you got to have water, a backpack, and good shoes, and rope, and all of the stuff.
Correct.
If you just walked up to the mountain with flip-flops and some cut-off shorts,
we're gonna make it.
Yeah, we
got this.
You might have some trouble.
No, yeah, it's chipping away slowly at it and really, categorizing things. Okay, this person can do this. The movie. Mm-hmm. This person's doing the music. This person's sound effects. This person's color correcting, and really delegating, different departments.
Yeah.
And not get. You've got to have your focus on the end goal, but then you've got to be looking where you're at the same time. It's you're looking ahead and then down at your feet. It's constantly back and forth.
And you're shifting focus back.
Shifting focus, yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, it's kind of like the general of the army, or the general of a battalion, right? Mm-hmm. Or I'm sorry, brigade. They are looking at the overall picture. They're not looking at the little making sure that the soldiers' rucksack is properly,
That's somebody else's job.
Yeah, that's somebody else's job. They're looking at the overall picture of the whole unit versus, and then you've got somebody else who's delegated to look at those small details. Mm-hmm. That kind of thing. That's how we're kind of doing post-production on the movie, and that's how you normally do it.
Yeah.
So, and I think a lot of things in life are kind of subdivided that way. As far as you've got to have the overall picture of something. For our black belts, when we're going for our black belts, you go for your black belt, but then you're okay, I've got to come in for the next 6 months to train for my black belt test. On Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah.
So that's the challenge is just slowly hacking away at it, just piece by piece. And then when you hack away at it piece by piece by piece, then you all of a sudden look back, you're like, man, we made a lot of progress.
Yeah. Because you're in the muck of it, and it's and there's no time to look up. So just go, and then 6 months down the road or a few months down the road, you can look back and go, oh, I made all this progress.
Yeah. I look back at everything we did on the movie. I'm talking this movie has been in the works for almost over 4 years. Mm-hmm. That we started. And I look back at every little step and if I knew now what I knew then, I'd like to say I'd still set off and do the same thing.
But you don't know?
I don't know, because That's why I don't think time machines are a good thing. Like I don't think we need them. Like they're a nice theory to have and play with in movies, and I'd like to make a movie about a time machine one day. But I don't think like back then, if I knew all the little hurdles we'd have to overcome.
Oh, like, is this worth it? Would I try and keep going?
Yeah, would I keep going? Like all the rejections we got for funding for the movie, like, and all those little steps. And it was just like, okay, first we've got to get the script written. Then we've got to have the corporation. And then we've got to, then we've got to get the funding. But then you've got to get the funding, you've got to meet people to have money or know people with money. And then once you get the funding, then you've got to, cast all the actors and get all your, get your locations and get your props and schedule everything out. And I've done that before, but on this, like, it wasn't an easy process. And so, like, I look back at all the little things we chipped away at, like, get the script done. And then it was the corporation set up first. Get the corporation set up first. Then the script. And then we started looking for funding. And then, meeting other movie producers and trying to do that. And I've looked at all those little chunks we hacked away at, and I'm like, man, like all that added up to now where we're at now, and that was like the payoff.
Wow.
To where, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like to where we're at now. So I've really been doing that in the last like couple months since we finished filming. I was like, man, like it took a lot. It was a lot of small steps to get here. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like one big step. And it's the same thing now. And so now I'm looking forward to the next movie, and I'm like, okay, now I know what to expect a lot more. Not that I've worked on movies before, but producing one myself
and like driving the truck
is a totally new experience. And I didn't have somebody that took me really under my wing and said, hey, Tyler, come here, buddy, and puts their arm around me and says, this is how you produce a movie. I didn't have that, and I'm not complaining. Actually, I prefer that. And so I've had to kind of piece together from my different experiences, like,
do it this way or don't do it this way.
Yeah. Do this part this way. This part worked for this movie. This part didn't work on this film set. And so it was just really, really cool to be in that position. And I think there's a certain level of ownership that comes with finding something out for yourself versus
somebody like
leading you. And that's not to say that having a teacher or a mentor that has its place, and that's good. When you do certain things, you're not always going to have a teacher or a mentor for stuff. You're not always going to have somebody that has the answer. And so to be able to have that self-starting ability that says, I don't know how to do this, I'm going to figure it out, and I don't know anybody to ask, but I'm still going to do it. I think that's a very valuable skill. And I don't think that is inherited. I think that is something you learn.
You develop.
You develop.
And I don't think that there's anywhere you can learn that.
No.
Like, you just kind of have to go take a step and be like, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
And you make all those mistakes, which are plentiful. And then you kind of go, oh, I'm not going to do that one again.
Yeah.
But I think I was close to the answer on this one, or this was a disaster. Oh, hey, look, we got one. We made the right choice here.
Yeah, let's remember that one.
Yeah.
Let's do that one again.
Yeah.
And so I think we live in an interesting age. We live in like a dual age where it's all about self-development and self-discovering. We have YouTube and the internet, and we can Google how to do things. But at the same time, we also have this other part of like the online internet where a lot of people are selling their products and like, let me teach you how to do X, Y, Z. And it's this weird dynamic we live in where it's all about self-development, but then you've got these people wanting to sell their service or offer their service. And that's not a ding on anything that, I'm just saying that's the way it is.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a certain level of, we have to rediscover that ability to be able to figure things out for ourselves, and just
Yeah.
for a lot of things, obviously you got to fix your car. You don't know how to fix your car. You call up your friend and say, hey, can you come over and help me? Or you may not have a friend that knows how to do it. So you got to be like, okay, I've got to YouTube this, or I've just got to go look at another car, how another car is, then come back to mine,
Figure it out.
Figure it out. And because, I think that's it. But then having that ability to research something and look at, this is how they fixed this car over here on this YouTube video. Now I can go do mine. I mean, it's just such an interesting time we live in.
Absolutely. Information is a few keystrokes away.
Yeah.
For the most part, on tangible things like your car or your dishwasher or your stove or whatever, you can figure out a lot of that stuff. But the bigger intangible things are the ones that are the perplexing ones, and I think that's because like there's no concrete thing.
There's no concrete path to
follow. You can. There's many different paths, and it's one of those things you just have to do it. And what works for you may not work for your neighbor.
Exactly.
And I agree. It's very unique. It's very cool.
There's different principles for, there's the saying business is business is business is business, I think holds true. But there's all these different types of business, like what I'm doing, making a movie and distributing it, or the guy that gets the hot dog cart and rolls it down the street selling hot dogs, or the person that opens the clothing store. Business is business, but there's every different way to do it. And at the end of the day, I mean, a lot of people aren't going to sit there and hold your hand and be like, this is how you do it, like for 20 years. Like you may be blessed and be able to have somebody, a mentor that shows you something for a year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever. And then they're eventually going to turn you loose, or
if you're lucky.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or you may just have somebody kick you in the pants and say, get the hell out of here. You can't do it.
Yeah, get out of here and go find it. That there's that old saying, or not that old saying, but you always hear that story of the dad who had the son or the daughter who didn't know how to swim. Right, and they just found a river and threw him in the river and said, "You better figure it out real quick."
There's a John Wayne movie, and I haven't seen the whole movie, but they're standing on the bank of a river or a pond. I can't remember, but it's John Wayne and this kid, and he's going to teach this kid how to swim, and the kid's like, "I don't know how to swim," blah blah blah. So he grabs him by the back of the shorts or the pants and the scruff of the neck and throws him in the pond,
in the river,
right?
Okay.
And the kid's like flailing around trying to swim, and his head's bobbing up and under the water. And his mom shows up, like comes running into the scene, and it's like, "What are you doing to my kid?" And he's like, "Kid didn't know how to swim, so I'm teaching him how to swim." And she's like, "Well, aren't you going to save him?" And he's like, "That's going to defeat the purpose of him learning how to swim. If you want him out of the water, you go get him." And she's like, "Well, I don't know how to swim." So he grabs her and throws her in. Something like that. I may butchered that, but that's the gist of it. And it's like, well, sink or swim, I guess. I don't know.
Swim. I have heard from multiple. I have heard from multiple people that actually happened to them. They didn't know how to swim, and somebody, and their dad, granddad, mom, sister, somebody grabbed them and said, "Well, here you go," and just threw them in the river. I think that was in Matthew McConaughey's book. I have Matthew McConaughey, the actor.
Yeah.
His book.
Green Lights?
Green Lights.
That's
I have
a great book.
And I believe he talks about how his dad threw him, I could be wrong on this, correct me if I am, but I believe his dad threw him in a river upstream from like a waterfall. He said, "You better figure, like, here
Figure
you
this
go.
out.
Not only do you have to figure out how to swim, but if you don't, you're either going to drown or go over this waterfall.
Wow. That's wild.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and reference that, but I think he talked about that too. But I actually have personally talked to somebody who that their grandparent did that to them.
Wow.
But anyways, yeah. So, but I think it's interesting just figuring things out for yourself and where I'm at now on doing a movie, and I'm doing a movie in itself is so. There's so many little moving pieces and complex moving parts, and at every stage, and everyone's different, and the business is rapidly changing. I mean, it's always changing.
Well, you have to stay with the times.
You have to stay with the times, and I mean, we live in. I mean, there's dual strikes going on right now, which is interesting too in the entertainment industry, and so and that being said, but I look back and I'm like. 3 or 4 years ago, I was always like, I was looking for somebody to be like, hey, can somebody hold my hand? Can somebody mentor me on this and like show me how to do this? And I'm looking back now and I'm like, no, I don't. I think I was good. I think I'm good the way it's gone through. Is like I've pieced together, little pieces of advice and made it my own, and now it's forged my own path.
Yeah. That's interesting that you say that, because if I had to describe you as somebody, I wouldn't say that you would be looking for somebody to help you, because you've always been like, let's go, let's do. I mean, from what I know of you,
yeah, right.
I wouldn't say that like. No, I would. Like you're one that is like, let's go. We have to take that first step. If we're going to do this, let's go. I don't know if this is the right path, but there's a path right here,
Yeah, okay.
And we'll find our way along the way.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That's how I would describe you to somebody. And you're one that tries, good or bad, you're trying.
Yeah.
And that's admirable to me. Very interesting.
Maybe, yeah. Thank you.
Because I feel the same way. Like I've always kind of looked for somebody to be like, hey, go this way or do it like this. And there are people there that do that, but it's like, are you open to listening?
Yeah.
Are you willing to humble yourself and listen to what they have to tell you?
Humbling yourself. That's
a
tough one.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is in the last couple of years where me and my friend who I made the film with, among many people, but me and my friend, we were looking for, it's almost like we were going around and asking different people how to do it and how to make it and how to, getting advice. And it's almost like we put self-limiting blocks in front of us that it was like, oh, well, we need X amount of dollars to do this movie. We need X amount of people. We need certain actors and actresses with value, with fame, do that. And so it's almost like we put these self-limiting blocks in front of us. And it's like when we had exhausted all our options, that's when it was just like, all right, the heck with it. Let's do it our way.
Like you ran out of excuses?
Yeah, it's almost like we ran out of excuses. And it was like, let's do it our way and forge our own path. And then when we did, and then here I am sitting out with an almost finished film. And it's so interesting to think that, and to look back and reflect the last 4 years, because it was March of 2019 when we started the corporation to do the film, to do business and filmmaking within the state of California, Mighty Men of Valor. And so, like you see all those things, and it was we were trying to go around and make a movie somebody else's way. We were trying to do it somebody else's way.
Yeah.
And then we were like, let's do it our way.
Well, and it's the same thing with like the school here.
Mm-hmm. The karate school.
Everyone that walks in the door that is going to sign up, I want to be a black belt.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how long does it take? Da, 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 da. What do I got to do? Blah, blah. And the amount of people that make it through the first week sometimes is slim. Or the first month.
Yeah.
You know,
it's like
it's slim. Whether or not it doesn't work for them, or there's too much work, or you know, the list of excuses is long. But the payoff, but you know, before that, like you almost sometimes you lose sight of the big picture, the goal, and you're just like, okay, I just need to keep stepping. I need to keep putting one foot in front of the other. I have to keep doing this for whatever reason. I'm not sure yet, but I know that every step gets me one step closer. And I'm sure it has to be that way a little bit with the movie. Like, you get bogged down with like finding people to work with you, or finding funding, or like, okay, the script. How's the script turning out? Oh, right. Well, we didn't include all of the camera work that needs to go in here, or we didn't include the settings. Now we got to go back and adjust this, and this timeline doesn't work. So you know, you get bogged down with all of that you miss sight of the original goal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's usually the little details that trip you up, I would assume.
It is the little details, yeah. And we're going through that right now because, you know, we're in the process of showing this somewhat finished movie to people and getting their feedback on the film. You know, an early cut of the film. Doesn't have barely any music, doesn't have barely any sound effects, isn't color corrected. For all intents and purposes, it's just edited together, and the audio's kind of halfway okay, decent.
So would you say it's like 75% done?
I would say just overall from being ready to release, I would say somewhere in the 60% done.
Okay.
You know, it's like it's still real rough right now. You know, but we've got all these different elements, the music, the sound effects, the color correcting, they're all being worked at this moment, and they're all going to come together. So we're going to go from like 60% done to like 90 in like one step.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not like 60 to 70 to 80, which that would be fine. But yeah, and so we're getting all this feedback from people, and it's really interesting because you can get bogged down in the details of everyone's opinions, and literally one person has an opinion over here that, oh, this scene with this actor and this dialogue wasn't very good, and
then you go to the next person and they love that.
They love that. It's just it's totally differing opinions, which is so interesting.
Well, and I think that's kind of where you have to have thick skin.
Thick skin.
You have to deal with an opinion
and not take offense.
Yeah.
That this process has really taught me to really have thick skin and not take offense. That is a big one. If you cannot take offense when someone's critiquing you and just sit there and sift through what somebody's saying in reference to like whatever you're doing, right? You're a martial artist, you're a plumber, you're a drag car racer, whatever. If you can take critique from someone and not take offense, that is a superpower.
Absolutely.
That is a superpower. Like, that is a modern day superpower.
Well, and especially if it's constructive.
It's constructive.
You know, if you're trying to help, I think that helps a little bit. But if you're just critiquing for the sake of being a critic, take it or leave it. You gotta know which kind of criticism to listen to, and put validation in it, right? Like, if I'm just being a jerk and saying, oh, well, the lighting's off on your movie, and that actor's not saying that line right, and your camera angle's wrong. You know, if I'm just being a jerk, or if I'm saying, you know, I like the scene, but maybe the camera needs to be here, or maybe the lighting needs to be lit from this angle, or the character should act this. If I'm giving you something that you can build off of, that's a whole nother story. As opposed to just being a jerk about things.
And a lot of times that critique is people being jerks, and their critique is coming out of their ego, which is actually coming from a place sometimes of jealousy. It's coming from a place of jealousy that they didn't step out on their own and do their own thing, whatever that is, whether you set out to build a car, or you set out to do a painting, or you set out to start a business. They didn't do that, and that's sad that they didn't do that, and that's their own hurdle to overcome. But what they do is they take that disappointment in themselves, and then they go over here and they want to tear somebody else down for somebody following their passion, their dream. And I'm not just talking, I'm talking for my movie. I've definitely felt that with people where they will come in and tear into your thing. And I'm like, and it's more of like a gut feeling. At some point, you're like, man, this person's really passionate about tearing into this.
Yeah.
And you're like, there's been a couple times where I was like, man, this isn't objective anymore. This is now like subjective, and it's coming from a place of jealousy. And I've had that with scripts I've written where, somebody hasn't written their own script, but then they read one of mine and then they tear into it. And I'm like, this feels not objective. This feels like
it's not constructive.
It's not constructive.
Yeah.
It's destructive. And it really feels like it's coming from a place of jealousy. And I have no way to, whip out the magnifying glass and look at their ego and be like, are you coming from a place of jealousy? Like I can't do that, but it's a feeling. But in any regard, like not just, you could just not apply that to a movie, just anything that you do.
Absolutely. Any activity. And
so I'm really careful about who I ask for critique, on something that I do. I don't just...
That's smart, though.
Ask anyone for critique.
Because then the critique, if you've vetted the person you're asking, the critique is going to be honest. It's going to be good. Mm-hmm. Or it's going to come from a place of helping you move along, move forward in whatever goal that you're working towards.
Yeah.
And I think that, it's almost like they should teach this in school.
My screenwriting professor did at school. He had, in our screenwriting class...
He taught everyone how to critique each other?
He had at least one class, maybe two or three, maybe two, but he had a couple classes where we went through the screenwriting course and we wrote half of a screenplay. In one semester, we wrote half of a screenplay. At the end of it, at the end of the semester, or towards the end of the semester, when we were almost done with a half of a screenplay for a movie, mm-hmm. he actually had one class for sure, maybe two, and he has a section in his book on screenwriting on how to give and receive critique. And I will never forget that
that's awesome.
Because he taught us you have to sit there and there's a difference between defending your decisions and how you write a movie, or just think about anything, defending what you did and how you built this house, or how you did this painting, whatever, or how you threw this punch. Right? Yeah. There's a way between defending how you did it and clarifying what you did, your intention was. Yeah. And that is a fine skill to know that, I did this. And why I did that was why I had this character do this in this scene was to have this happen, versus, well, don't you think it's a good reason the character did this thing? Those are different things. So I agree. They should teach how to give and receive critique in school. Maybe they do.
It's been a while since I've been to school, but I had a painting class in college and I didn't know it at the time, but so we paint, and the teacher was really laid back. I mean, it was a painting class. It wasn't like calculus or anything. It was basically a burnout class. But so we would paint, and he would say, okay, your first painting is due like in 3 weeks.
Wow.
So you just paint, in class. And he'd walk around and like people would ask questions, or he'd be like, what are you trying to do here? And he'd help you with like certain techniques or whatever. Well, at the end of those 3 weeks, everyone put their painting up on the wall, and then he would grab a painting from the wall and put it on this easel in front of the class. And then everyone would say what they liked about it, or what they didn't like, or what it meant to them. And you as the painter weren't really allowed to talk.
Yeah.
So you just had to, it was kind of like, it would be like, the first time I did it, it felt like I was standing up in the middle of the class and just taking all my clothes off. It was terrible because I wasn't a good painter, and I was honestly, I don't know why I was there. But so we get there, and there's this one guy in the class who is like giving detailed, suck.
Did we not format it?
I don't think we formatted. How crappy is that? Card full.
How far did it go?
Who knows? Well, we have that. Good thing we have that.
Yeah, we still have this
we
one
still have
going.
that. I don't know how to tell
Here,
how far it went.
let me.
So I'll finish talking while you figure that out. So this one guy in class is like,
do not pray for an easy life. Pray for the.
Let me just see where we're at. Let me see
Okay.
if I can skip through all this. Oh god, it's gonna take forever. Oh no, there it goes. It's going faster.
did it go like 10 minutes in?
No, now it's at like 30, 34. It's 44. Okay, so it's, we can format that. Let's figure out where we were.
Okay.
Gosh, I don't. Hold on, let me. What was our?
I screwed that up.
How are you, Joe? Do not pray for an easy life. Pray for the strength.
9, 10, 01. 9, 10, 0, 0. Okay, I'm almost.
No worries.
Let's see, 44.
You know. Then they read one of mine, and then they tear it.
So it was only just happened.
Oh man, good eye.
Maybe two. But he had a couple classes where we went through the screenwriting course and we wrote. Awesome. Because he taught us you have to sit there and you versus, well, don't you think it's a good reason the character did this thing? You know, those are different things. So I agree. Had a painting class in college.
Oh wow, it must have just happened.
Yep. Wow. Since I've been in school, but I had a painting class in college.
So start right there. I had a painting class, and then we need to
Put this
and
down.
that's already. I copied everything, so I can just format that.
Okay.
Let's see. I don't need that. I can just go home and get something else.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I don't want to need that one. The guy I'm recording with today. Okay, so that. So I had a painting class.
Yeah. Freaking wild.
So there's that one. Because I for some reason I was keeping an eye on. I was like, I don't know why.
Good thing you kept an eye on it, because I was just ignoring this thing completely. I try to forget that it's there, so like I don't
Perform to it.
Yeah, and it's tough for me because if I see that if I like focus on it, then I start like trying to censor myself.
Yep. Let's see. So menu, SD card, format.
behind the scenes look at how things are running. That only took about 3 minutes, though.
To do all that?
Yeah. Not bad.
Okay, we should be good on that.
Rock and roll. Okay, here we
So
go.
I had a painting class.
All right. So I had this painting class in college, and it was really free form, like not very structured. But there was like we painted for like 3 weeks, somewhere around there, and then we had one class where like everybody comes in and hangs their painting on the wall, and then the teacher would randomly grab a painting off the wall, stick it on this easel in front of the class, and then everyone would critique it and talk about what they liked, what they didn't like, colors and schemes and all of that sort of thing, and how it made them feel, right? So there's this one guy in class, in every painting, he's got just tons of stuff to say about these paintings. And some of them, there was, for the most part, most of the paintings were pretty amateur, but there was a couple of people that were really good artists. And this guy would go on and on about every single painting for minutes. And when you're bored out of your mind, that's an eternity, right? And I'm just going to myself like, oh, in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, just shoot me. This guy's just talking forever. Looking back at it, like the stuff that he was giving was genuine, and it was really interesting. He had good and constructive things to say about every single painting. And it was really cool of him to do that. Whereas like most people were like, I like it, or I don't like it, or that color's lame, or, like just really dumb stuff. And this guy had something to say about everyone. And I'm like, it was a cool thought. But as I was talking about before we had our technical difficulty, that first time we did that, it was like standing up in front of everybody and just taking all your clothes off. Because for one, I wasn't paying attention, but I didn't know that was what we were going to do. I just thought this was a class to like, I'm going to paint on canvas and have fun, and this guy was serious about it. And we were going to like paint and we were going to take this seriously, and we were going to have a show, and you were going to do something with this, and had I had known all of this, I don't know that I would have taken this class. Right? This was a burnout class. This was a class for me to like pick up on girls and stuff, not like be a serious painter, right?
Aren't all those classes initially about that?
Absolutely, and it was very valuable, because I learned that like, if you're going to give somebody feedback, it should be worth their time, because if they asked you for that feedback, that means that they respect you, or they see value in the things that you do.
Interesting.
And so you should give that to them. You know what I mean? Like, you should honor them by giving them an honest opinion, but also a valid opinion, right? Like they saw enough in you to be like, what do you think of this? So you owe them that. Does that mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like you owe
I do.
them. And so
that's like an unspoken kind of rule about getting critique. I never thought about that. Like, you see, maybe it's subconscious, but we see somebody as an authority, and so we want,
or not even authority, but just like, hey, I respect your opinions, and I respect the things that you do, and so I want your feedback. Like, you owe it to them to give them honest, good feedback, right? Like, at least that's my thinking. And this class taught me that by just listening to this guy drone on and on about all of these different paintings, even the crappy ones. He was like, he gave good stuff. And like, every single painting, it wasn't just like, oh, I liked it, or no, I didn't like it.
Right.
You know, move on to the next guy. No, he was like, the color schemes are great. The shading, the like, I really feel that this was what the artist was going for. Blah blah blah. And he referred to everyone as an artist. That was the other thing that I got that was weird. But it was very valuable, and it made me like think about that when somebody asks your opinion. They're maybe looking for validation, but they respect you enough to get your feedback. So you should give it to them. You should give them that respect back, you know.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know. That was just what I got at it.
Yeah. Yeah, like you wouldn't go to somebody you don't know
and go, hey, what do you think of this?
Yeah, somebody on the street and be like, what do you think of my painting?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, maybe some people do, but like I wouldn't.
No.
And you're only gonna go and there's something to be said about asking somebody who's an expert in painting,
mm-hmm.
that's like a painting teacher, asking them for their opinion. And they're going to break down every little individual element of that painting. But there's also something to be said that you go and ask somebody that doesn't know anything about painting. And you just say,
what's this do for you?
What do you think about this? And they may not be able to talk about the different shades of the painting, the different lines, the composition of the colors together. I mean, the layers. They're just taking it in its complete format and what does this do for me in its complete format. And those are two separate, I think, valid ways of getting feedback, because it's almost like when somebody's a master of something or very well experienced, sometimes they're so detailed in breaking down every little element of something. Sometimes they're such a master that they only see. We're not talking about somebody who's not experienced. We're talking about somebody who's a master.
Yeah.
Then it's almost like to me, it subdivides down to the ones who can see every little detail and pick apart every little thing. But then there's the masters who they've been doing it so long, now they don't see every little detail because it all blends so well together, right? Somebody who's a master kung fuist who throws a perfect punch just sees the whole punch in its entirety. That's the, you know, how does it look? And it's being aware of where your feedback's coming from too.
Yeah.
Because we show our film to people who don't know anything about filmmaking, and they're getting it in its raw form, and they're basing their critique off all the movies they watch on all the streaming services or the movie theaters, and they're not filmmakers, versus the person who's a filmmaker, and you give them,
and they look at it in an entirely
totally
different way. Yeah.
And they're like, well, the framing of this shot is, not the best, and the coloring and the lighting, and they're breaking it down so detailed. But the person that just is the one, eating the hamburger at the end of the, eating the chef's good gourmet meal is just like, oh, this tastes good to me. Yeah, this tastes pretty good.
They're just breaking down all the ingredients.
Yeah.
Whereas like the director or the movie guy would be like, here's all the different ingredients, and you misuse this one here.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you ask people for feedback, and you say, what do you think about this? And sometimes it almost shifts people's mental states, where they go into this, like, they're crossing their arms and they're all, okay, well, let me give you...
Now that you've given me authority to be a judge.
yeah. Then they go into this different mind, unless they paid for a movie ticket, walked in a movie theater and sat down, they would be their mind's not in critique mode.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting. But your painting teacher and how he gave for all the different pictures, he gave critique for every single one of them, and you liked it, right? Because he had.
Well, it was actually somebody else in the class.
Oh,
it wasn't even the teacher. The teacher really didn't say much. He just would pick the picture and stick it on the easel and, all right, class, what do you think? And it was another student that was doing this. He was an older guy. I think he was retired. And he was just painting for fun. He really enjoyed painting. And he was actually okay painter. But the feedback that he gave was honest. It was good. It was constructive. He had it, he had something that like you could work on. And then he told what he liked, what he didn't like, what he thought people could work on every single painting. And it was just, it was so good. It was so, at the time I was bored to tears because it was just like, dude, that's a stick figure. And, it was just, that painting looked like they spilled paint on the picture. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? But he thought enough of the program or enough of the class to where like he was giving something to everyone, and it didn't matter what it was. He was giving something of value to each and every painting, and it was like, wow, I don't have that kind of patience. I don't have that kind of wherewithal to see that. Does that make sense?
It does. That's a powerful skill. That's like a superpower too.
Yeah, and it was like it made me think later on, as I grew up, hopefully, that like if somebody came to me and asked me for my opinion, I owe it to them because they had the guts to do that. Because that's not an easy thing to do. Hey, tell me what you think of this. That's, you're putting yourself out on the line there. And so it made me respect that a little bit more, because I think that is a admirable thing to do. Like you should respect that whole thing. If somebody comes to you and is like, hey, what do you think of this? I made this thing or I did this thing. Tell me, give me your feedback. Like, they respect you to value your opinion, for one. So you should return that favor.
That's good. And not be capricious and
real,
just kind of short.
Like, exactly. Because like if you came to somebody and you're like, hey, here's this movie I made, and they were just like, it's okay. Or, they didn't give you anything of value back, like, would you go to them again?
Probably not.
Yeah.
Like you want something in return.
You want something. Well, you're working on something. It's just like in class when we're working on something, and when a student is struggling with something and they ask like, "Hey, help me with this. How does this look? Am I doing this correctly?" You don't just go no and walk away.
Right.
You're like, no. Here's what you got this right. You got this wrong. You're doing this. You're close here. Do it like this.
Uh-huh.
Or you're trying to give them value, and you should give them value, and you should do that with everything. If somebody's asking you for help or an opinion, that means something. That means that they respect your opinion. They respect what you think. They respect you enough to seek your help. So you should give them that. At least that's what I think.
I think that's good.
And I'm sure there's some people that listening to this that know me that are like, well, you don't do that. So I apologize if you're one of them.
What do you think? This is kind of like something I always think of when for critique, because critique, there's the umbrella of critique. Do you think there is such a thing as objective critique, or do you think it's all subjective?
I think it depends on the person. Because there's always somebody that's going to, there are some people that's their critique comes from their ego. Okay. And then there are others that are like, I'm genuinely trying to help you. Right? I'm genuinely trying to make you better. And then there are those that come from that. So I think it just depends on who you're getting the critique from. And like social media is a perfect example. right?
Yeah.
You go through, you see somebody post something, and then there's like all these comments, and some of them are like, doesn't matter what they do or who they are, it's great, it's awesome, you're wonderful, or you suck, you should just, go crawl in a hole. You know what I mean? Like, very, very few people come from a genuine spot there. And social media is wonderful, but it also brings out the ugliness. And so I think that people do one or two things. They're genuinely trying to help you improve, or they're coming from a place of ego. Generally,
So it's not so much you're saying in that regard as subjective versus objective. It's, are they trying to help you or help themselves?
Yeah.
Which, if they're helping themselves, it's their critique is coming from a place of ego to make them
feel better about what it is they're doing.
Feel better about their own choice of shortcoming or choice of whatever their ego needs to be, massaged.
Or just simply trying to make themselves feel better about something.
Yeah.
For themselves.
About themselves. And they may consciously or unconsciously be doing that.
Yeah.
That's something, because art, it's very hard to be objective about art.
Well, and it's a matter of opinion.
It's really subjective. Yeah. I mean, what's the anything with objective versus subjective? It's what is the measuring standard that defines objective?
Yeah. Well, it's like you show your movie and it's a comedy, right?
Yeah.
You show your movie to somebody that doesn't like comedies.
Oh yeah.
They're gonna be they're gonna be indifferent to it.
Yeah. If they like horror.
Yeah.
Where's the blood and guts?
Exactly.
No, this movie's not good.
Well, yeah.
That is something I definitely had to definitely. I think it's one of those never-ending questions that it's gonna be debated till the end of time. Is what's subjective versus objective, and
for sure.
And maybe what you said sounds pretty good to me. Where are they trying to? It's not so much subjective or objective. Are they genuinely trying to help you versus trying to help themselves?
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, tomorrow you can ask me that question and I have a totally different answer, but that's just how I feel about it right now. Well, heck, we've been going at it in an hour.
That's good.
Yeah, I think that's good. We had a few technical glitches, but we made it work. And until next time. Oh, dude, I totally forgot. I'm going to be on a podcast in a couple days. I'm a guest. Dio Talk, D-I-O Talk. He is on all the streaming services, I believe. Really interesting gentleman. He has a whole wide spectrum of people that he's interviewed and talked to. I'm doing that one for sure. I don't know when that's out, but I will post a link on this episode when I find out when it's going to come out. And then I'm in talks of doing another podcast with some other guys just as a guest. Not cheating on you, Tyler.
Oh no.
But yeah, just working on some of that. Tyler's working on his movie, and we're still down here at the dojo training as often as we can. And yeah, reach out to us on social media, subscribe to our show, let us know if you like it or not, and we'll talk to you soon. There we go.
Bam.
Bam.
That was a good one.
That was good. That was fun.
That was.
I live for this. Like I really look forward to doing these. I think it's so good. It like makes me think about stuff. You know what I mean? It's like exercising.
It's like exercising for your mind.
Yeah, because like we break down things, we get into the weeds a little bit sometimes, but that's like, oh, I never thought about that. Like the critique thing that you were saying, I never put any thought into that. Like, was it objective or subjective?
What's the measuring stick?
Yeah. What's the measuring stick?
I mean, is this a good back fist? Bam.
Yeah.
In our art, that's a diagonal.
Yeah.
Like, every other art, that's a back fist. Like what? Like
what's that mean?
Yeah. What's that mean?
You know, and dude, I've never thought of that before. So like, that's the kind of stuff that I really like.